Good morning and welcome to Mobile Device Manager Plus training. Before I can start off, I'd like to know whether you're able to hear my voice and see the presentation. Please confirm the same by commenting on chat. Thank you folks for your confirmation. Now let me kick off. Mobile Device Manager Plus training program is a 2-week training program aimed at facilitating better understanding of all the features that MDM has on offer. We are in week 2 today, where we'll be seeing device enrollment and provisioning. So what exactly is device enrollment? It refers to the methods by which you can onboard the devices in your organization to the MDM solution. And provisioning here refers to pre-configuring the basic settings on the device. The previous training session, app management and device security, covered all the aspects of managing an app lifecycle as well as the various security features that are provided by MDM. In case you missed the previous training session, you can view the same in this link given below. Now let me introduce myself. I am Achyutan and I am happy to be your trainer for today. So let us have a look at the training agenda for today's exciting training session. So this is the agenda. Firstly, we'll have an overview of Mobile Device Manager Plus for those who are unfamiliar with how the product actually works. So under this, we'll have a general introduction about MDMP, and then we'll have a high-level look at the MDMP architecture as well as ports to get a wholesome idea about how MDM management is done. Then we'll also provide you with an idea on how MDMP actually manages devices. This training session incorporates problem solution approach, whereby I have taken a few common scenarios that I've encountered in our support. So the first such scenario that we'll be seeing is enrolling mobile devices. Here we look at how to enroll devices that are already in use as well as new devices. The second scenario that we'll be seeing is pushing configurations to manage devices. Here we look at how to pre-configure basic policies for making the device usage ready, as well as how to prevent unauthorized exchange access. This will be followed by a quick look at few scenarios and their solutions. We'll end this session with the questions that have been posed by the customers. In case you have got any queries during the session, please don't hesitate to post it on chat. I've got an expert panel waiting here ready to answer your questions. So let me move on. Firstly, we'll have the overview of MDMP. Mobile Device Manager Plus can be used for managing mobile devices and tablets running on iOS, Android, and Windows. In case of Windows, you can also choose to manage Windows 10 laptops using MDM. It is available as an add-on to ManageEngine Desktop Central and Unified Endpoint Management solution, as well as a standalone software available both on cloud as well as on premises. Let us understand the MDMP architecture. It provides you with a wholesome idea about how the product actually works. As you can see, there are 3 important components in this architecture, namely the MDMP server, the notification services, and the managed devices. As you can see, the MDM server doesn't directly contact the managed devices. Instead, the MDMP server contacts the notification services, which in turn wakes up the device, after which the device interacts with the server. As seen here, the notification services are platform dependent with Apple Push Notification Service or APNS for iOS, Google Cloud Messaging Service or GCM for Android, and Windows Notification Service or WNS for Windows. Since the devices to be managed are mobile and are always on the go, it is recommended that you match your internal IP address with the external IP address. For those of you who are worried about exposing your server to the external networks, you can optionally configure Secure Gateway. Secure Gateway, as the name suggests, ensures that all the incoming communications to the MDM server are routed through itself before actually reaching the MDM server, thereby adding an extra layer of security. Additionally, you can also configure Active Directory for authentication purpose. As seen now, there's a lot of communication that is happening for MDM to manage devices. Ports basically facilitate communication, the various types of communication that are happening on Mobile Device Manager Plus. For example, the device to MDMP server uses port 9383 for communication on the secure HTTP channel. The MDM server to notification services uses port 2195 in case of APNS. and 443 in case of GCM or WNS. The device to notification services uses these ports. These ports are to be opened if your server is behind a firewall. So you must be curious as to how MDM actually manages devices. So in case of iOS devices and Windows devices, it leverages the native MDM client that is present on the device for management. In case of iOS devices, in case of Android devices, it needs the MEMDM app to be installed on the device for management. That brings us to the end of the basic overview of MDMP server. So let us jump into the first scenario. So for managing devices using MDM, the first step is to enroll them onto the MDM server. Enrolling is onboarding of the devices onto the MDM solution. Assume I'm an IT administrator of an organization Zilker which has a predominant mobile-only workforce, and now I have decided to use MDM for managing devices. So before I can start enrolling them, I need to make a big classification. That is, these devices can either already be in use or maybe in inventory for future use. These are the devices that have been given to the users beforehand, and on the other hand, we have got new devices. So we'll be looking at how to enroll both these categories of devices using MDM. Firstly, we'll be looking at enrolling devices that are already in use. In such a scenario, we have got two options. The first option is to enroll using email invites, and the second option is to enroll devices via self-enrollment. We'll look at each of these options in detail. Before we can look at them in detail, we need to understand the benefits of using enrolling via invites and self-enrollment. The first big benefit is that it lets you isolate the personal and the corporate workspace, ensuring that you have full management control over the corporate workspace, whereas the user has his own privacy in the personal workspace. The second benefit is that you can choose to prevent unauthorized data access. The last benefit is that you can also restrict the sharing of corporate data from managed apps to unmanaged apps. This adds an additional layer of security. So firstly, we'll understand how enrollment by invites actually works. Firstly, the admin sends an invite to the user, after which the user accepts the invitation and follows the steps given in the invite. He can either choose to scan the QR code and then access the enrollment URL to complete enrollment. Once the enrollment is completed, the device gets registered with MDM. So I'll show you how this is done on the MDM server. So I'll take you to my MDM server. Log into your MDM server and click on enrollment. And as you can see, here's the option to enroll devices. But before that, you'll need to configure APNS. As stated previously, APNS is required for managing iOS devices. To configure APNS, click on APNS certificate from the left pane. As you can see, I've already configured one, but for your benefit, I'll be doing it again. So I'll take you to another instance of my server. As you can see here in this server, APNS is not being configured, so I'll show you how it is to be done. Firstly, you need to provide your corporate email address. It is recommended that this address is a common one for future access. Once you have provided the email address, provide the organization name. And on doing so, you will be presented with a plist file which needs to be uploaded on the APNS portal to download the APNS certificate. I'll show you how this is done. So once you click on create and sign CSR, so you can see the request is being processed, after which you will need to download the vendor signed CSR as I stated before, and then click on next. And this vendor signed CSR is to be put back on the APNS portal, after which you will be given an APNS certificate which is uploaded back onto the MDM server. This is how it looks once the APNS has been uploaded. As you can see, all the details including the organization name as well as the email address used for creating the APNS are listed here. This APNS expires within an year and you will need to renew when there is time. You can also choose to migrate the Apple ID in case of any issues in your organization, as well as remove the APNS. Now that we have configured APNS, let us try to enroll a device. So I'll go back to the devices tab, click on enroll device, and I'll be enrolling an iOS device for this demonstration. So I click on iOS. If the device is already in the administrator's hand, he can choose to enroll the device all by himself. So that is the option I have chosen first. And the only mandatory field is that I need to provide an email address. Additionally, I can also choose to configure the ownership type and also assign it to specific departments. For example, I can choose to assign this device to the finance department in case the employee belongs to that particular department. Once that is done, I click on next. And as you can see, the administrator needs to scan this QR code to proceed with the enrollment. Now let us see what other options we have got with respect to enrollment. So I'll go back to enroll device and select iOS again. And this time, assume the device is with the user, and so the user needs to enroll the device. For that purpose, I'll choose the option through user invites. In case you have configured AD with MDM and the user is a part of your AD, you can choose user type as domain user and then select the domain and provide the username. But for this demonstration, I'll be using the user type as local user. So I select that, provide a name. On providing the name and email, all the mandatory fields have been filled. Additionally, I can also choose to select the ownership type, say personal or corporate, and optionally assign it to a particular department, say HR department. And an email enrollment invite will be sent, which can be configured and viewed in this link. Once you are done with that, click on send enrollment invite. Now the enrollment invite will be sent to the user, after which he can proceed with the enrollment. Now let us see what happens on the device end. Firstly, the user needs to provide the OTP that has been given on the mail to initiate enrollment. Once that is done, an MDM profile installation gets initiated. On successful installation of the profile, the device gets enrolled successfully and is listed on the main panel present in the MDM server. So I'll take you back to the server again. As you can see, the status when the device gets enrolled will change in near real time from yet to enroll to enrolled. As you can see, the remarks has also been changed from enrollment request sent to successfully enrolled. This is how user invites are done. So you must be wondering as to whether if your organization has more than 1,000 devices, do you need to send 1,000 different requests? No, you can prefer the option of bulk enrollment. So I'll teach you how that is done. Click on this bulk enrollment option. You can choose to upload a CSV file which contains the requisite details needed for sending enrollment requests. So I'll show you how a CSV file looks like. This is the sample CSV format. You need to provide the username, domain name, email, and optionally the ownership type, group name, as well as platform name. Once you're done with the CSV, you can upload it back on the MDM server, and once that is done, all the users who have been listed on the CSV file are sent enrollment requests. But then again, you must be wondering as to whether there's even more better option whereby the administrator need not do anything and the user enrolls the device all by himself or herself. Yes, we have got an option for that as well, which is self-enrollment. Self-enrollment, as the name suggests, ensures that the users enroll the device all by themselves without any admin intervention. So let us see about self-enrollment in detail. This is how self-enrollment works. Firstly, the user accesses the self-enrollment link and then provides his AD credentials to initiate enrollment. Once the enrollment is complete, the device gets registered with MDM. So I'll show you how to configure self-enrollment on the MDM server. So I'll take you back to the MDM server. Select the option self-enrollment from the left pane. As you can see, I've already configured the settings, but there are a few interesting options in self-enrollment settings. For example, you can choose to allow self-enrollment for all the AD groups that are present in your organization or selected AD groups. Assuming you want the privilege of self-enrollment only to be given to managers, you can choose to add all the managers in a specific AD group, click on selected AD groups and provide that particular AD group. Additionally, you can also choose to exclude specific groups by clicking this link. Here, The groups that are added for the users that belong to this particular AD group will not be able to utilize self-enrollment. Additionally, since this enrollment happens without the knowledge of the administrator, it is recommended that the administrator gets notified every time a device is enrolled via self-enrollment. For that particular option, you need to enable this and provide an email address. As you can see, I've already done that. There's one more interesting option whereby you can choose to auto-assign the devices that get enrolled with MDM to specific departments. Assuming it is only the HR department that is using Android devices, so you can choose to select the platform here and select the ownership type here. I'll be using Android as an example. So personal Android devices belong to the HR department. So I select that. In case there are corporate Windows devices that are used by finance department, for that purpose, I'll select the platform, the ownership type, and the department. So once this is done, anytime a corporate Windows device gets enrolled, it gets automatically added to the finance department group, and any apps profiles that are associated to that particular group gets installed silently on the device. This is the self-enrollment URL which is to be published on internal message boards and organization forums for the users to access whenever need be. Once you're done with this, click on Save. As you can see, the settings have been configured and the users can start enrolling their devices by accessing the self-enrollment URL. So I'll show you what happens on the device end. So I'll take you back to my presentation. So as you can see, he needs to select the on-premises option, provide a few details such as the server name, server port, and the email address. Once that is done, he needs to provide his AD credentials to complete the enrollment. This is how self-enrollment is done. So you must be wondering as to why there has been a categorization, as to why there are separate enrollment methods for enrolling new devices or enrolling devices in use. The problem with the existing enrollment methods is that in case of enrolling new devices with these existing enrollment methods, the administrator needs to complete the initial setup manually. The initial setup here is the number of setup screens that are shown for the first time when the device is activated. So the administrator needs to complete the initial setup and then proceed with the enrollment. Though the enrollment methods we have seen are simple, it still requires admin intervention or user intervention to either initiate or complete enrollment. So the answer for any repeated task is automation, and yes, MDM does allow you to automate enrollment. In case of iOS devices, it lets you automate enrollment using Apple Configurator and Apple DEP. In case of Android devices, the enrollment can be automated using EMM Token Enrollment and Zero-Touch Enrollment. We look at each of these methods in greater detail now. But before we look at that, we need to understand the benefits of automated enrollment. In addition to making the enrollment process very simple, these are the following benefits of automated enrollment. The first benefit is that it lets you install apps silently. We saw this in the previous training session. Additionally, it also lets you provision devices in kiosk mode. The third benefit is that it provides extensive support for all the profiles and configurations as well as policies that are present on the MDM server. Firstly, we'll be looking at Apple Configurator. Apple Configurator is a free tool provided by Apple for enrolling iOS devices in bulk. So this is how Apple Configurator actually works. Firstly, you need to install and set up Apple Configurator on a Mac machine, and then you connect the devices via USB to the Mac machine. And then you pass the created configuration on Apple Configurator to these connected devices. Once that is done, the devices get enrolled with MDM on activation. Before we can start off with Apple Configurator, you need to understand how to set up Apple Configurator. Setting up Apple Configurator involves two steps. The first step is that you need to add the MDM server. Here you provide details regarding the MDM server to ensure that the device, when activated, contacts the MDM server to enroll itself. The second step is to configure iOS Setup Assistant. iOS Setup Assistant ensures that you can choose to skip all of or some of the initial setup screens that are shown during device activation. So I'll take you to the Apple Configurator setup to show you how this is done. So this is the Apple Configurator application. So to add the MDM server details, which the iOS devices will be using for contacting the MDM server, I need to create something called as the blueprint. So to do that, I'll click on File and click on New Blueprint. As I've already created new blueprints, as you can see here, this is the created blueprint. I'll provide a meaningful name here, Silker. Now once this is done, I need to add the MDM server details to this created blueprint. To do that, I'll click on the option Prepare. I'll be preparing it manually. Ensure that the option Supervised Devices is selected. Supervision provides the administrator with extra features and additional management capabilities. And now click on Next. I've already created a server, but for your benefit, I'll create a server again. I'll click on New Server and click on Next. Provide a name for identifying this server, and then this is the URL which will be used by the device to contact the MDM server. I'll show you where you need to fetch this URL from. I'll go back to the MDM server. Just one second. Yes, so I've gone back to the MDM server. Click on Apple Configurator and click on this option Configuration Steps. Now here is the URL that is to be put on Apple Configurator. So I'll go back to the Apple Configurator setup again. Now I've provided the URL. This URL will be used by the devices to contact the MDM server and proceed with the enrollment. Click on Next. Now it fetches trust certificates from the given URL. As you can see, these are the trust certificates for the MDM server we have just added. Verify it and add any additional certificates based on your organization needs and click on Next. We've already provided an organization name here, so I'll click on Next again. And this is where you can choose to skip any of the steps that you want. I have chosen the option Don't show any of these steps. You can either choose to show all these steps if required, or choose to show some of these steps. As you can see, you can completely configure the initial setup screens. In my case, I don't want to show any of these steps. So I'll select that option and click on Prepare. Once the blueprint has been prepared, the next step is to associate it to the devices. For that purpose, you need to connect the devices that are to be enrolled with MDM using USB to the Mac machine. So I'll just connect a device. So once I've connected a device, I'll click on Done. And as you can see, the device is being listed. Once the device is completely loaded here, we can proceed with associating the blueprint. As you can see, the device has been added. So right click on this device and click on Apply and click on the created blueprint, which is Silker. Once I apply this blueprint to the device will get reset and the enrollment process gets initiated, and the device activation will happen in accordance with what we have configured here. As you can see, the configuration is being applied on the device. So while this is happening, I'll show you what happens on the device end. As you can see, once the device is reset, the first introduction screen is shown. After that, you need to select a Wi-Fi network. This is for the device to contact the MDM server through the Wi-Fi connection. Once that is done, the configuration option is shown. Here, the user can either choose to apply the configuration or skip it. Once the Apply Configuration option is selected, the device gets enrolled on installing the configuration. As you can see here, there were no setup screens that were shown as we had configured it in Apple Configurator. Now the device is ready for usage as well as enrolled with MDM. There's one more step to complete enrollment, which is assigning enrolled devices to employee. This is the last step to complete enrollment, and after you have assigned the user, you can then associate the policies that are associated to that particular employee. I'll show you how to assign users to the enrolled devices later during this session. So the next method that we are going to see is for Android and is called as EMM Token Enrollment. Just one second. This EMM Token Enrollment, as the name suggests, you will be using an EMM token, also known as a DPC identifier, to initiate enrollment. I'll show you how it works. Firstly, you need to download the MEMDM app by providing your DPC identifier after the device has been rebooted. The next step after the installation is to scan a particular QR code. On scanning the particular QR code, the device gets automatically registered with MDM. So I'll show you which is the QR code that is to be scanned. So I'll take you back to the server. Click on EMM Token Enrollment. And this is the QR code which is to be scanned by the users to initiate enrollment. So let me show you what happens on the device end. Once the device has been reset, when asked for the Google account, user needs to specify the DPC identifier or the EMM token AFW-MEMDM. As you can see here, this is a token specifically provided by Google to MEMDM for initiating EMM token enrollment. Once you have provided the EMM token, the MEMDM app gets automatically installed on the device. Now open MEMDM app and click on the scan QR option and then scan the QR that I showed you on the server to complete enrollment. Now this brings us to the end of the first two automated enrollment methods. By now you must be having a question. What if your organization is growing and has already purchased 500 new devices, and it is going to be obviously difficult for the administrator to unbox each one of these devices and then manually enroll them? There were two problems that we discussed with respect to the primitive enrollment methods that we saw at the start. First one was the initial setup that needs to be configured, and the second problem was the admin or the user intervention that was required to complete enrollment. As we have just seen, we have eliminated the first problem by ensuring that there are no initial setup steps that are required to configure the device. Now we'll see how to remove the second problem of the administrator or the user required to do some action to initiate enrollment. Now we'll look at the two methods, Apple DEP as well as zero touch enrollment, which will ensure that there's absolutely no intervention required from the administrator or the user as the device gets enrolled out of the box. So there are certain prerequisites for these two enrollment methods. The first one is that you need to create an account with Apple or Google. This account will be used in respective portals to initiate enrollment. Additionally, the devices that are to be enrolled must be purchased either directly from Apple or Google or must be purchased by authorized resellers. So the first method that we are going to look at is Apple DEP. This is how Apple DEP actually works. Firstly, you need to integrate the MDM server with the DEP portal. This is done by providing your Apple account details. Once that is done, you need to add the device to the DEP portal. As the DEP portal is integrated with MDM server, you're essentially adding the devices to the MDM server. All these actions are performed by admin and is one time. Once the devices have been added, you can distribute the devices which get automatically enrolled on activation. So let me show you how this is done. Go to the MDM server and click on Apple Enrollment DEP from the left pane and download this public key certificate. This public key certificate is to be uploaded on the Apple portal for the integration purpose. So I'll take you to the Apple portal. Once you have logged in with your Apple account, this is the DEP view. So firstly, I'll be adding an MDM server. This is the server to which the devices will contact on device activation to initiate enrollment. So I click on Add MDM Server. You can choose to provide your organization name, and then the next step is to ensure that you select the option Automatically Assign New Devices. This ensures that any device that is added after configuring this MDM server gets automatically assigned to this particular MDM server. Once that is done, click on Next. You you need to upload the public key certificate that we had just downloaded from the MDM server. On doing so, click on Next. Now you'll get a server token. Once the server token is uploaded back on the MDM server, the integration is done. So I'll click on Done here. Once I've uploaded the DEP token, the DEP configuration settings are shown and it has a few very interesting options. The first option is that restrict users from removing MDM. If this is enabled, the users can never revoke management. Irrespective of whether the device is factory reset, the device will still fall under MDM management. The second option is to supervise these devices. As stated before, supervision provides the administrator with additional capabilities and extra features. Additionally, you can also select this option, enroll devices during device activation. When enabled, this ensures that the device gets enrolled as soon as the device has been activated. Additionally, in case you want the enrollment to be authenticated using Active Directory credentials, you can select this option. This ensures that the users authenticate themselves using their Apple Directory credentials and the users get auto-assigned to the devices. And this is the setup we already saw in Apple Configurator. These are the initial setup screens which you can choose to skip. As stated in Apple Configurator, you can choose to skip all of these setup steps or some of these setup steps. Once you are done, you can see that no device has been added. So only when you add the devices to the DEP portal will it be reflected here. So I'll take you back to the DEP portal again. And click on your account name and click on organization details. As you can see, the organization details are listed and here is an option, add reseller or supplier. So click on that option. As you can see, for the devices that have been purchased by the reseller, you can provide the DEP reseller ID. Once that is done, any device that is purchased from that particular reseller gets automatically added to the DEP portal and hence gets automatically enrolled with MDM. So now that I've provided solution for the new devices, what about the devices that are already in the organization? You need to manually add these devices to the DEP portal. However, Apple provides you with 3 different options for uploading these devices. You can choose to add devices using their CL number or the order number or the PO, or you can choose to upload a CSV file which contains details regarding the device. Once you have provided the serial number, you can choose to assign the device to the server that we just created, which is Zilker, and now click on OK. As you can see, the assignment is complete and anytime a device is purchased from a particular reseller, it gets automatically enrolled on device activation. This is Apple DEP. This is what happens on the device end. As you can see, once the device is activated, there is an information regarding configuration. So unlike Apple Configurator, here the user cannot choose to skip this configuration and be forced to apply it. Once the configuration is installed, the device contacts the MDM server to initiate enrollment. And once the device activation is done, the device gets automatically enrolled with MDM, after which you need to assign users to complete the enrollment process. So the next method that we'll be seeing is zero-touch enrollment. As you can see, this is how zero-touch enrollment works. It is pretty similar to Apple DEP and has been provided by Google for bulk enrollment of Android devices. So the first step is to set up the Android zero-touch portal by using a Google account. Once you are done with that, you need to create an MDM configuration on the portal. This MDM configuration will be then distributed to the devices. The MDM server details that are present on the configuration is used by the device to contact the MDM server to initiate enrollment. Once the device is distributed, it gets automatically enrolled with MDM on device activation. As you can see, the first 3 steps are admin performed and are one time. Once this is done, the devices can get enrolled automatically without any further admin intervention. So I'll show you how this is done. So go to the Google Zero Touch portal and log in with your Google account. If you need to create a new configuration, you can click on this plus icon. As you can see here, I've already created a configuration in advance, but for your benefit, I'll show you how to create a configuration again. So I'll click on this plus button. and provide a configuration name for identifying it. And under EMM DPC, you need to select ManageEngine MDM from the drop-down. Now for DPC extras, you need to provide a JSON file which is present on the server. So I'll show you where this is present. Take you back to the server. Click on Zero Touch Enrollment and click on the Zero Touch Enrollment steps. This is the JSON file which is to be pasted on the Google portal. So I'll copy this one. So you can see it has been copied. So I'll paste it under DPC extras, provide further details such as the company name as well as the contact email. Once I'm done, I'll click on apply. As you can see, a new configuration has been added. Now this is the devices section which lists all the devices which are to be enrolled using the Zero Touch portal. But this devices section is usually accessed by resellers. The resellers automatically add the devices to the Google portal. For you to select which default configuration is to be applied, you can select that option here. Once you have selected the option and click on apply, all the devices which are added by the reseller gets associated with this default configuration. Once that is done, the devices get automatically enrolled with MDM. This is what happens on the device end. As you can see, a lot of the initial setup steps are skipped and you're requested to install the ManageEngine MDM app. Once this is done, the device is set up as work device and the enrollment is succeeded. One other advantage with Zero Touch Enrollment is that it by default provisions the devices as device owner. Right now the support is for Android 8.0 or later versions. Similar to DEP and Apple Configurator, you'll have to assign user to complete the enrollment process. Now I'll show you how to assign user on the MDM server. So I'll take you back to the MDM server. As you can see, I've already enrolled a device which is yet to be assigned a user. Right now, the user is the administrator since the administrator was the one that enrolled the device. To complete the enrollment process, you need to assign the user. I can either choose to assign the user on a device-to-device basis by clicking this option, Assign User, present under Action, or I can choose to enroll it, or I can choose to assign users in bulk by clicking on the Assign User options present at the top. Once you're done with that, you will be downloading a CSV which contains all the devices details. You need to provide the username, email, and the group name, and then upload it back here to assign users in bulk. But for our demonstration, I'll be using the device-to-device basis model. So I'll click on Assign User, and this again is going to be a domain user. So I'll select the name Ozil. Once I select the name, the email address is also automatically fetched. Additionally, I can choose to assign the department. Assuming it belongs to the sales department, I select the group. Optionally provide a name for the device. Once you are done, click on Assign. Once you have assigned the user, the enrollment process is complete and the device moves from the Zero Touch Enrollment view to the main devices enrolled view. You can also view the list of devices that have been enrolled through Zero Touch Enrollment by clicking on this link here. As you can see, the device that we just assigned user is listed as one of the devices which was enrolled. Now this brings us to the end of the first scenario where we explored the various options in enrollment. Let us have a quick recap. In case the devices are already in use, you can choose to enroll these devices by sending either email invites or self-enrollment. In case of email invites, you can have it sent individually or sent in bulk. In case the devices are new and are yet to be used, in case of iOS, you can use DEP as well as Apple Configurator for enrollment. In case of Android, you can use EMM Token or the QR code enrollment, the Zero Touch Enrollment which we saw just now. You can also enroll devices using NFC or Samsung Knox enrollment. The Samsung Knox enrollment, as the name suggests, is applicable only for Samsung devices. In case of Windows, you can use the ICD method to enroll devices. This brings us to the end of the first scenario. In case you have got any queries, please don't hesitate to post it on chat. I'll jump to the next scenario, which is pushing corporate configurations to manage devices. Having onboarded the devices onto the MDM server, the next logical step would be to preset the configurations on the device to ensure that the device is usage ready as soon as the enrollment is complete. This not only ensures that the user can start using the device from get-go, it also ensures that the administrator is not inundated with a help desk request regarding configuring of Wi-Fi on the device. So we look at the various configuration policies that are supported by MDM. For this demonstration, I'll use some of the most commonly used corporate configurations. Firstly, I'll let you know sorry. Firstly, I'll let you know how to set a strong passcode policy based on the organizational security standards. Then I'll teach you how to set up Wi-Fi VPN as well as email and exchange. These are the backbone for an organization that is using mobile devices as a part of its workforce. And also teach you how to configure enterprise single sign-on for the devices as well as have your organization as the corporate wallpaper on the corporate devices. To show you this, I take you back to the MDM server. Now click on Device Management from the top menu and select Profiles. As you can see, you can create profile belonging to any of the three platforms. For this demonstration, I'll be creating an iOS profile. Now provide a meaningful name for it, config. You can optionally provide a description if need be and click on continue. These are the set of corporate policies that are supported by iOS. But first up, we'll be setting up the passcode policy. In case you want the passcode to be complex and difficult to guess, it's recommended that you restrict this option of allowing simple value. Alphanumeric passwords are generally harder to crack, so it is recommended to enable this option. You can optionally also have a minimum passcode length of say 6. And additionally, you have a whole lot of configuration which you can modify based on your organization security standards. Once you're done with that, click on save and then you need to publish this profile. But before publishing, I'll show you how to configure the other policies as well. Firstly, I'll show you how to configure the Wi-Fi policy. Here you need to provide the SSID or the wireless network identification by which the device will connect to this particular Wi-Fi connection. I'll provide a name, Zilker Corp. Once that is done, I can choose to ensure that the devices connect to this network immediately on identification. Additionally, I can also choose to configure security type, say WEP Enterprise or WPA, based on the infrastructure that is present in my organization. In addition to all of this, you can also choose to configure proxy. Under proxy settings, we have two options. You can choose to either add the configuration for proxy manually, or you can choose to redirect it to a proxy auto configuration file. Once the URL is provided, the proxy is set up as well. This is how you configure Wi-Fi using MDM. The next step is to configure VPN. So you can see your organization may be supporting a whole lot of VPN types. MDM does support L2TP, BPTP, and a whole lot of other VPN types. So I'll be configuring Cisco AnyConnect for this purpose. I'll provide an IP address for this one, silker.vpn.com. Once this is done, I can also provide you with a whole lot of other information based on the connection type you have selected. Additionally, you can also choose to configure VPN on demand. This ensures that device gets into VPN mode automatically without any user intervention. This is applicable for a particular URL. The URLs that you provide here, for example, star.zilker.com, ensures that whenever the device is accessing any URL of this kind, which is .zilker.com, the device automatically goes into VPN, ensuring additional data protection. Similar to Wi-Fi, you can also choose to configure the proxy settings here. In addition to VPN, we also have support for per app VPN, whereby you just add the apps that are present in the app repository and then choose to automatically configure the VPN setting when this app is being used on the device. Similar to what we saw in VPN, you need to select the connection type here as well. Once that is done, you need to provide an IP address, and then the per app VPN is ready to be used. So MDM basically supports VPN on demand, per app VPN, and VPN in general. Now the most important profile for any device in an organization is configuring email. As you can see, the mandatory requirements are the mail server. So I'll provide the mail server and the port. In addition to this, you can also choose to have granular configuration such as the sender name, sender email address as well. So you must be wondering, in case I need to distribute this profile to 1,000 different devices, do I need to create 1,000 different profiles because the email address is going to be unique? Fret not, because MDM has got your back. All you need to do is to provide this dynamic variable percentage email percentage. Once this is done, MDM automatically gets the email address from the enrollment details. Similar to email address, you can also choose to dynamically configure the username by using the dynamic variable username. All these details are fetched from the enrollment request, and thus the profiles are configured uniquely for each employee. In addition to email, you can also choose to configure Exchange Active Sync. Assuming your organization has Office 365, you can select the option. The Exchange server gets automatically pre-filled since it's on the cloud. And once again here, in case of username, it can be automatically prefetched by using the dynamic variable percentage UPN percentage. Optionally, you can use certificate-based authentication by selecting the identity certificate here. So I click on that, GeoTrust. Now the authentication for Exchange server will happen through the certificate. Additionally, there are a whole lot of granular advanced settings which will ensure that there's an added layer of security. Now next up, we'll see how to configure Enterprise SSO. All of you must be having access to a lot of different web services, and it's going to be a real pain to remember all the different passwords. The option of using a common password is not recommended since it is not secure. Once this password is cracked, the hacker can have access to all your services. So between remembering all the various passwords and not using the same password comes Enterprise SSO. Enterprise SSO ensures that it remembers all your passwords so that you can concentrate on much more productive tasks than remembering passwords. So here, firstly, you need to configure an account display name. So I'll have a test name here and a Kerberos principal name as well. Again, you can make use of dynamic variables as it's going to be unique for each users. Now once it is done, you need to configure the Kerberos realm. I have done just that. Additionally, similar to VPN, you can choose to have an identity certificate as the form of authentication. Additionally, you can also choose to have SSO for particular URLs as well. In case your organization, in addition to apps, also requires SSO for web services, all you need to do is to provide the URL for the particular web service. Once that is done, SSO is applied for these URLs as well. Once you're done with that, click on Save and Publish. Now as you can see, this profile is published and is ready for distribution. To distribute it to the groups or devices, click on the link here and select the group. I have selected the marketing department and click on Associate Profile and select the option. Now once I have done this, any device that gets added to the marketing department will automatically have all these policies distributed to it automatically without any admin intervention. In addition to that, I also told you how to configure wallpaper. For that, I'll take you back to the MDM server. I'll create a new profile for this purpose. Click on iOS, provide a name again, wallpaper. Click on Continue and select the wallpaper option from here. As seen here, you can choose to add both JPEG format as well as PNG format images. You can drag and drop this image or select it and this image gets automatically configured on the device. As you can see, this can be set for both the home screen as well as the lock screen. Once you're done with it, you need to follow the similar process. Save. Since I've not added a wallpaper image, once I add the wallpaper, you can click on save and publish this profile. Now let us see what happens in case the passcode policy gets applied on the device. As you can see, a prompt is shown to the user about setting a secure password, and he has got a 60-minute time frame before he can set the passcode in accordance with the profile that has been configured on the MDM server. So which brings us to another interesting question. Now once you have given the credential for accessing Exchange server to the users can use any device to access the Exchange. These devices might not be enrolled with MDM and thus pose a security problem. The solution to this is to use conditional Exchange access. As the feature name suggests, it grants access to Exchange based on certain conditions. The condition primarily considered here is that the device must be enrolled with MDM. For actually configuring CEA, there are certain prerequisites. This is what I explained regarding conditional Exchange access. Before we look at the prerequisite, this is how conditional Exchange access works in a nutshell. In case of unmanaged device, the access to O365 or Exchange is completely restricted. In case of managed devices, that is the devices that are enrolled with MDM, they can continue to access Exchange server. Now let us look at the prerequisites for setting up conditional Exchange access. The first is that the Active Directory should be configured and integrated with MDM. Additionally, self-enrollment must be enabled. You must be wondering why this is a prerequisite. I'll tell you later during this demonstration. Additionally, basic authentication is to be enabled on the machine running Exchange server. This condition is applicable only if the server version is Windows Server 2K10. So I'll show you how to configure conditional Exchange access on MDM server. So this is how it works on the MDM server. Firstly, you need to integrate Exchange with MDM server by providing your Exchange admin credentials. Once that is done, you can enforce a conditional Exchange access policy. So the devices that don't adhere to this particular policy will be restricted access, and devices that adhere to this policy can continue to have access to Exchange. As seen here, these are admin performed and are once again a one-time operation. So finally, I'll take you to the MDM server. Click on Device Management from the top menu and click on Conditional Exchange Access. Select the host type based on the Exchange server that is used in your organization. For this particular demonstration, I'll be selecting O365. The server name gets automatically pre-filled. Now provide your O365 admin account credentials. Once you're done with that, click on Next. As you can see, you need to configure an Exchange access policy. So I'll do that. I'll click on Configure Now. Now this is where you configure the basic settings. You can choose to restrict all the devices that are not enrolled with MDM from accessing Exchange server or specific devices. Since Exchange is of paramount importance in an organization, I'll choose to restrict all the devices that are not enrolled with MDM. Additionally, I can choose to grant the users 3 days of grace period. During this grace period, the users need to enroll the devices with MDM for continued access. However, during the grace period, the devices can continue to access Exchange server normally. However, during this grace period, there will be emails sent to the user notifying the restricting of Exchange access once the grace period has been done with. Once you have configured the policy, click on Apply Policy. So you can see the conditional Exchange access policy has been configured. So these are 11 devices that are not enrolled with MDM. These devices are currently in grace period and they can continue to access the Exchange server for a period of 3 days. After that, the devices will be restricted access. So I'll show you what happens. I'll take you back to the MDM server, click on Device Management and Conditional Access. As you can see, there are 3 devices still in grace period, while 8 devices have been restricted access to Exchange server. So how will these devices actually regain access back? So click on the steps to regain access. As you can see, you need to share the self-enrollment URL with these device users for them to enroll the device with MDM. Once the devices get enrolled with MDM, access to Exchange will be automatically granted. This is the precise reason why self-enrollment is a prerequisite. Additionally, you can also choose to have look at all the 8 devices that have not been enrolled with MDM that are continuing to access Exchange. And you can also choose to sync the server if need be to know all the devices that have been accessing Exchange till now. This sync can be either manual or can be automated. This brings us to the end of the final scenario. We'll now have a look at scenarios and their solution. The first scenario is that my organization uses Windows devices. How can I enroll these devices in bulk without user interaction? As explained previously, you can use the Windows ICD method for enrollment purpose. Additionally, MDM has started to support bulk enrollment of Windows devices using Windows Azure Enrollment and Autopilot. The second scenario is an employee is moved from one department to another. The old profiles and restrictions are to be removed and the ones pertaining to the new department are to be added. How can this be done over the air? This is one of the common scenarios that are encountered in an organization. Employees move from one department to other and it becomes a real pain for the administrators to remove all the previous policies and deploy the new ones. But MDM does this in a single button click. I'll show you how this is done. So I'll take you back to the server, click on groups and devices and select the sales department. Assume an employee is moving from the sales department to the finance department. So I'll select the device and click on move to group. I'll select the HR department. Once I click on select, all the policies that were associated based on the device being in the sales department gets silently removed and all the policies pertaining to the HR department gets applied silently. The third scenario is I want all the downloads from our internal website to be viewed only using a managed app. Is it possible? So sometimes there are confidential documents which get downloaded on the device and these corporate confidential data can be accessed by any third-party app. This is a hindrance to security. Now I'll let you know how this can be done to ensure that any downloads from particular websites can be viewed only using a managed app. I'll take you back to the server and I'll click on profiles. I've already configured a particular profile for this scenario. So I'll show you how this is done. Click on modify, click on continue. And if you configure the payload managed web domain, it ensures that any download from the URLs that you have specified can be viewed only using managed apps. For example, I have provided 2 URLs here, internaldocs.zilka.com and private.zilka.com. So any downloads from these 2 particular URLs can be accessed only using managed apps. Managed apps are those apps that you have distributed from the MDM app repository. Once this is done, you need to save and publish this profile. So the final scenario for today is I don't want users to be able to remove devices from a management. How can I do that? So I'll need to go back to the server for explaining this particular scenario. Go back to enrollment. As you've already seen, when iOS devices are configured using DEP, it ensures that the user can never revoke management. Even if the device gets reset, the devices get automatically added to MDM management. So I'll show you how this is to be done for Android and Windows. For Android, click on the ME MDM app present in the left pane under the Android section. So I click on that. Now ensure the allow user to remove ME MDM app option is restricted. This ensures that the user cannot uninstall the app and hence revoke MDM management. In case of Windows devices, click on the ME MDM settings that is present under the Windows 10 section and ensure that the option allow user to delete MDM workspace account is provided as no. Once this is done, the user cannot delete the MDM workspace account and hence never go out of MDM management. So what happens in case the user somehow circumvents all of this and manages to unenroll the device, you can have the option of notifying the administrator. To do that, click on Enrollment Settings and select this option, Notify when the device becomes unmanaged. Once you select this option, anytime a device gets unenrolled or the device becomes unmanaged by the user, the email address which has been specified here gets a notification. Now we'll have a look at the questions that were asked today. The first question is that I have purchased a few devices neither directly from Apple nor from its resellers. Can I still enroll it in DEP? As you just saw in this session, DEP has a whole lot of benefits and advantages which is not available in the other enrollment methods. However, there's a primary prerequisite for DEP is that the devices must be purchased from Apple or its reseller. So is there an option by which I can still enroll in DEP? Yes, you can. However, the primary prerequisite in this case is that the country in which you live in must support Apple DEP, and the devices that are to be enrolled must be either iOS 11 or iOS capable. In such a scenario, you need to connect these devices to the Apple Configurator, as we just saw during this presentation. Once you are planning to prepare the blueprint, there will be this option, Add to Device Enrollment Program. Once this option is selected, the devices get added to DEP through Apple Configurator. It is also to be noted that once you select this option, you will be asked to provide your DEP account credentials later during the preparation. Once this is done, the devices get added to a separate MDM server on the DEP portal. The second question is, what are the other methods of authentication that MDM supports? So I'll take you to the MDM server for this purpose. As you can see, MDM supports three different types of authentication. The first one is that you can choose to authenticate devices using OTP or using Active Directory, or in case you want additional security, you can choose to have a combination of both OTP and Active Directory authentication. Now the third question is it possible to apply a profile created for one platform to devices running on other platforms? No, this is not possible because the APIs that are used for this particular profile might be completely different and will vary from platform to platform. Thus, a profile that is created for one particular platform can be applied only to devices that are running that particular platform. So the fourth question is, I want to apply different policies as separate profiles. Is it possible to apply multiple profiles to devices? One option would be to create all these multiple profiles and associate them one by one to the device. But the better option is to associate all these multiple profiles to a particular group and ensure that the devices which are to be associated with these profiles get added to that particular group. Once that is done, the device, when on being added to the particular group, gets all these different policies associated on it silently, again without admin intervention. The last question is, what will happen in case I apply two profiles with contradictory restrictions? Let us assume this example. In case of the first profile, I choose to restrict camera, and in the second profile, I choose to allow camera. So what happens when these two contradictory restrictions are pushed to the device? In case of iOS and Windows, the most secure version is considered. In this case, the restricting of camera is considered most secure, and thus the device cannot access camera at any point. In case of Android, the latest version of the profile distributed is considered. So in case of Android devices, the camera will be enabled, though it was disabled when the first profile was associated. This brings us to the end of the questions. If you liked our presentation, rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the best. This is to be rated on the survey which will be shown once you exit this presentation. If you further liked our free training series, you can spread a word on the various social media present. The next training schedule will be on May 17, 2018 at the same time, and it will be dealing on app deployment and device security. Thank you and have a great day.